All right. Obviously, it's last regular season home game, so we're looking forward to Thursday night. Our fans and specifically our students, I think, have been terrific this year in terms of how they've shown out, and so I want to make sure I get a shout out to them because they've been lined up when I come in for games, rain or shine, one day in the sleet. So that atmosphere and energy that we need to continue to have and build within that group is evident, and very thankful and appreciative for them. But getting to Purdue, obviously, everybody's watched them. The team has struggled a little bit here recently, but really talented. And you start with Zach Edey inside at that size and how he's improved. Just in my radio and TV show upstairs, and I think the one thing that jumps out about Zach is how he's improved. A year ago he wasn't even starting. They were platooning him with Travion Williams, and how he's now playing 33 minutes a game at 7'4" or whatever. He's 7'5", 305, 310. His work ethic, I know talking to Matt over the summer, just how hard the kid works, how committed he is to the game. It just goes to show you with all the rankings and the stars and all the things that everybody on the outside gets wrapped up in, this kid was ranked about 400th maybe, and how he's developed himself into perhaps a National Player of the Year. Very similar to the guy we had here a few years ago too with Frank, different games, but not thought highly of on the outside, but how they've worked, both those guys in their career, it shows. Then the two freshman guards, Braden Smith and Lawyer, really talented. I think they both have years, much like Connor's had for us. And then they've got some experience with Mason Gillis and Caleb First, who had the best Buddy the Elf stuff around the holidays. If you saw it, I wait till I see Caleb to commend him on the Buddy the Elf acting that he did. And then obviously Newman and others that have stepped in, and it's a really solid team. It's deep. But obviously Zach Edey presents enormous. I don't say that tongue-in-cheek or as a pun, but he's much better than he was a year ago, and he was a handful last year.
Let's take questions. We'll start over here with Jeff and Carly.
Greg, when we talked to you after the Michigan game, you didn't know where Chucky stood physically. Do you have a better idea? Do you expect to have him available this week, or what's the status?
I don't know yet, Jeff. I haven't talked to our trainer since yesterday, so I don't know where he'll be at in terms of the process today. So I'll learn more today. I would be hopeful, but until I see that and talk to our training staff, I don't know.
Then that's a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Kamari had to play his biggest number of minutes during the season. If Chucky can't go, what has Kamari shown you recently that gives you some confidence that you'll have a guy?
Yeah, I think the last 20 days has really opened the eyes of not only me but our staff. We've commented on it in our meetings several times, and it started in practice. I think he's become more and more comfortable, more accustomed to our vocabulary, how we have to do things, and it's shown in games, but it started with what we've seen in practice, and I think he's always stayed and kept a positive attitude about it, not getting frustrated with playing a little bit, not playing in this game, and it showed Sunday. He was ready to go, and I thought came in and gave us, as he has most of the time, given us some a really good boost, a spark. So that's a great sign going forward. But he, like I said, I just think how he's improved. He was a turnover machine earlier in the year in practice. I think he didn't quite understand how to play within that, and that's as I've always said, I treat him, or I've viewed him as a freshman just because there's so much to learn, regardless of what you played before. Every program's a little bit different, and the cohort of the team that you're with is different. So the learning curve for him he's gotten better, and there's no doubt. More confident, more comfortable, and it has shown how he's played.
Todd and then Carly.
When someone has an injury like Tyler did, and you get a couple months or a month or change removed from it, I wonder, have you seen him kind of going through any what ifs? What if this didn't happen? This season has been, second half of the season been different for me, for our team. Has he gone through any of that? And how do you deal with having a veteran leader in that position?
Well, I think anytime somebody goes through an injury, what gets lost in this and I've watched a lot of guys over the years do it, unfortunately, is that it has as much of a mental toll as it does physical. And not only maybe what you've lost in terms of games or times or those things, but how hard it is to get back to where you were. You just don't turn the page, or once the trainer gives you the green light, you aren't back to where you left off from. And a lot of it is mentally. You're not back there because you've missed, and it's missed time. You've missed the reps. Your timing is not right. Maybe you don't feel quite right. What you've missed has bothered you, specifically if it doesn't go well for the team while you're out. You feel somewhat responsible for that, like you could have saved the day in some regards or helped in some way, shape, or form. So I think the mental anguish of it, Todd, is as big sometimes as the physical, and how do you overcome that and fight your way through it? What was the other part of your question in terms?
How is he done?
I think he's played better. I think that tells you he's physically playing better, and he's mentally, I think, in a better place than he was when he came back. I know it was, it's been such a fine line. And Patrick's shared many stats with me that I just hang up on him when he tells me how fine the line is. You look at the standings in our league. You got 11 or 12 teams within 3 games of each other, and he calls me last week and goes, "Hey, you aren't going to like to hear this, but you're 3 possessions in 3 one-possession games away from having a 6-game winning streak at the time you said, and being tied for first." I said, "You're right. I don't want to hear that. Goodbye." So that's part of the frustration of it. You're so close, but yet you're not, and that's part of it. The what-if game. Injuries happen. You have to be able to overcome it and fight your way through it. And this group, one thing they have always been has been resilient as hell. I mean, they have not flinched a bit. I think that's why we've had so many close games and battles. They refuse to give in. That's a great sign. There's a lot of things we got to clean up and continue to get better at. Some of that will come with experience of going through these lessons and growing pains and whatever you want to call it. That will pay off, yet this year into the future, because the vast majority of this group, if not all of them, will be back. So you got to look at this as a process that sometimes doesn't go how you want it to in terms of end result, but what lessons can we garner from it and take and bank and help us down the road. And down the road is Thursday.
Carly.
Yeah, obviously not knowing if Tyler Wall will be back next season yet or not, but with senior night approaching, just what does he mean to this program?
Well, he's been a glue guy. I mean, he's got on the floor as a freshman because of how hard he played, and he brought so many intangibles in terms of unselfishness and the rebounding, the defense, that type of thing. He helped that team, to a conference championship as a freshman. And I think his game has grown as he's gotten stronger, and added parts of his games. I think he's still growing in terms of some of those areas. And perimeter shooting is one thing he spent a lot of time at and working on. And so I think in terms of he epitomizes, what you think of just blue collar, tough, hard nose. He's a Swiss Army knife defensively in terms of his ability to guard multiple positions. I think his leadership ability has grown as he's become more comfortable in that role. Still, he leads best by example. His work ethic on the court, his work ethic in the weight room is elite from what Coach Snyder tells me. And that shows with how he's developed as a player.
Raul.
Greg, you've mentioned what Carter does as a backside screener and just his role on defense. But last year, this time of year, when you guys played Purdue, he didn't play, and now he's probably going to play 15 minutes on Thursday. Just how have you seen him grow the past year?
Well, he's dedicated himself to, I guess, taking ownership to making himself better, and it started last spring. I think we've talked about his mom having a direct conversation with him, and sometimes parents can be even more direct than the coach can be, and said, "Hey, you got to figure this out. Stop, look in the mirror and stop looking for excuses." And it started with the weight room, how he committed himself to that, how he's changed his diet some, and his body has changed, and then just the commitment to the work. There's no magic secret sauce to becoming a good player. You have to work, and you have to work harder and work more, and it never ends. And that's what I think a lot of times on the outside gets lost, of how much good players just don't fall out of the sky. They have to really develop themselves and do so much and commit so much more to it outside of the coaches' fingerprints and time we get with them. And that's where it started for Carter. He made that personal dedication to, I'm going to take ownership of my success or lack thereof, and he's done an awesome job of it. I've told him many times, you've improved in ways that we envision, but it's credit to him that he's taken the effort and put forth the effort to make that happen.
Evan and then Jeff.
So with Tyler, I'm curious, what's kind of, your approach to convincing somebody like him to maybe come back next season? I'm sure in the middle of the season you want to give him a space to kind of figure it out. At the same time, there's a lot riding on that decision for next season. Right.
I thought you were going to ask me about how we convinced him his decision to come here. That was a short presentation. Like, he stopped me like 2 minutes into it, and as I'm doing my laptop PowerPoint thing up in my office, and said, "Coach, you can save your presentation. I'm coming to Wisconsin. I'm a Badger." So I'm saying, okay, that was the easiest one. But fast forward, how do you? I mean, obviously the game has changed in terms of transfer portal. I'll throw NIL with it because it's part of the whole equation now, and you can't avoid it or ignore it. It's a piece of it, and your roster fluctuation. I mean, nobody can predict. There's no coach in the country can tell you who's going to be on their roster next year, who's not. So you try to get answers in those regards, in those areas, as fast as possible whenever the season is over. So we'll have. We've had a little conversation with Tyler, but again, until that day comes, once hopefully that's down the road a few weeks, that we'll dive deeper into it. But he's going to graduate here in May, and the conversation of grad school and all that's already in motion. So he's in a good place. I just want to let him carry out these next two, plus the Big Ten tournament, plus whatever happens after that.
Jeff.
We talked to you after the game about, you mentioned you guys were trying to foul going up court. I'm assuming you're talking about Kamari McGee.
Right.
How do you instruct a guy like that to foul without, as you mentioned, tackling someone and getting to and the ball in that situation for Michigan?
Well, it's really it varies based on, there's no cookie cutter approach, and the analytics tell you, you've seen all it's been overanalyzed. I won't even go into it. All the studies have been done, whether you do it, whether you don't.
No, I'm sorry. I meant, how do you?
Oh, whether you foul? How do you instruct him?
To not foul so physically that it's.
Yeah, you have to make a play on the ball. You don't want to tackle because now or grab, like you're stopping a breakaway, so to speak, because you're dependent on the individual's decision of the official of what they see and how. So you're letting that outcome being put in the official's hands. If he sees it's too outside the box of a normal foul, you always risk that, the intentional. So you have to make a play on the ball is what we always tell them. Try to, a little more aggressive one, but it can't be a grab on from behind. And that's what gets you. Like if you grab the jersey, that becomes intentional, or it can be viewed as intentional because of the breakaway potential of that play. So make a play on the ball, but don't make it so obvious that you're, trying to do that. You got to. It's a fine line there.
Let's go with Jim Polzine and then Mike, and then we might have time for one more.
Quick follow that. I think you had said in the past that you let the officials know if you're going to be fouling in some cases. Did that happen on Sunday? Did you get a chance to let them know that, hey, we want to foul here at some point?
No, because we had to make the free throw. That was the thing. That second free throw had to go in. Otherwise, we're not going to foul. So in that regard, I subbed to make sure we had a little smaller lineup on the floor. Sometimes I'll sub to stop the momentum coming down and kind of use it as a mini timeout, just to stop the thrust so they can't grab the ball right away and get our defense set, or so we can get our defense set. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I also knew at the same time I didn't want to bother Kamari too early. It was after he made the free throw. I didn't want to talk about fouling when he still had one more free throw to make because I wanted to make the free throw. So there's that, and it was communicated. But I would have, how it played out, Jim, I would have let it, I will defend a deep corner end line out of bounds play with 2 seconds to go, every day of the week over trying to rebound a missed free throw. That's a no-brainer. We have to do a much better job of not taking ourselves out of the play on that pass. We took away the direct cut to the ball by Baker, and they had to throw it back up over the top. He has to reach back to catch it. We just have to stay in the play to be an obstacle for him to have to navigate around. But in terms of, there was no way I was going to foul with 2.1 seconds ago because you're relying on catch, thrust, and a quick shot right off the catch. But with the 8 seconds is too much. As I told Kamari, I said 2 to 3 dribbles and then get him. You want to get it in 5 or under. A lot of coaches say it's got to be under 5. Otherwise, you're risking too much of another possession of having to break pressure, having to make a free throw, or going to the free throw line and then having to defend another thrust to the other way. So you want to get that time down as much as you can.
Last one, right here.
Obviously, simulating a guy like Edie is impossible, but what can you do to help these guys prepare for a guy like that?
Yeah, well, I think the fortunate thing is, Tyler, Steve, not so much Gilly, but they played against him before. But it's the other components of your defense that can help, whether it's ball pressure, whether it's ways you can load the floor and squeeze areas around him a little bit. I don't think there's one. Every team they played in the 29 games they played has tried something, Some teams have doubled. Some teams have come off the other big. Some teams have come off the entry passer. Some teams have designated a specific defender to go get him, regardless of where you are. Some have played him head up and just dug. So I think there's, he first and foremost, but also how they position him, and they've always done that with, you always try to attack some of the condensing of the floor with where you enter the ball from. And they do a lot of things of spacing, the floor with Lawyer and with Smith and with Gillis that makes it hard for you to load. And they enter a lot from the top, which your defense is spread when the ball's in the middle of the floor. So it's a challenge to, you got to kind of cat and mouse it a little bit.